Sure. Okay, so hands up again. I saw Mr. Brock. Mr. Fortin, do you have your hand up on that issue only, or did you want to speak?
No, well, it was only on that.
Okay, so I'll just go in order here. Mr. Brock, Mr. Baber, and then Mr. Lawton. Okay, Mr. Brock, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Welcome back, colleagues. There was a general discussion before we left the House and engaged in a constituency week that there would be some consideration to a new amendment that clarified the language, ideally trying to reach an agreement of the impasse that we had before Christmas regarding the removal of the religious defense in the criminal code. I understand there was some consultations with stakeholders by the government in that regard. I received proposed language late yesterday evening. I've had a brief opportunity to explore that language with my team and get instructions. I also had an opportunity of speaking this morning with the minister himself, and it's my understanding that someone from the Liberal team will be moving this particular amendment to start off our discussions today. So I simply want to put that on record, as I anticipate this will give every member at committee an opportunity to express their opinion on this religious defense.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Mr. Bauer?
Yeah, I think the Conservatives have been very clear that we are of the view that elimination of the religious defense to willful promotion of hatred is something that we cannot support. There were some good faith discussions about looking to insert another amendment. I point to the fact that we have Mr. Lawton's amendment still on the floor that attempts to deal with that. So I don't know. I would perhaps leave it to your judgment, or maybe with the assistance of the clerk, to see how we can potentially deal with a further proposed Liberal amendment should the government be in position to present it.
Mr. Lawton?
Yeah, just to be more explicit here, and I want to respect, obviously, the privilege at issue here, but if the Liberal team and the Liberal government are serious about dealing with these concerns that have been raised about religious freedom and freedom of expression, I think it is important that that's put on record. So I would seek unanimous consent from the committee to allow to deal with, if someone is willing to move it, the addition of clause 11.1. And to put that as the issue at hand, and then once that's dispensed with, continue on. So I'd be seeking unanimous consent for that.
So I understand you're seeking unanimous consent to do something if they do it?
Well, I'm seeking unanimous consent to permit any member who wishes to move that amendment to do it at this point in our deliberation on Bill C9. This is something that is consistent with what the minister, I believe, has communicated to Mr. Brock.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing to vote on in those circumstances. So, is there anything else then, Mr. Lawton?
Well, I'll add myself back to the speaking list, but sure. Seeing as no one said no, is anyone prepared to move this amendment that deals with religious freedom concerns? There's
a speaking order, and if somebody gets to their turn and they want to move something, we'll deal with it when the time comes. But for the time being, unless you're moving something, I understand, and we'll get to Mr. Housefather. I'm simply asking if you're done.
Well, yeah, but I'm seeking unanimous consent, so that's
seeking unanimous consent for
that 11.1 can be moved at this point.
Okay, thank you. Do you mind if I go to Mr. Housefather first, because I suspect he'll address this? Thank you, Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we do have an amendment that we will be moving at the proper time when we get to the clause at hand, which is on page 6, line 12, and it's well after clause 4 that we're now in. We've been dealing with, the current sub-amendment to an amendment on the floor for quite a long time, and I think we should dispose of that before and go through the other clauses to get to where we would be to put forward a for greater certainty clause that has been discussed. While I believe a lot of the arguments the Conservatives have been putting forward have been incredibly misleading to people, we do have to deal with the concerns that have now been raised as a result, and this for greater certainty clause, I think, will help do that. But again, we had earlier times, Mr. Chair, where I, for example, had an amendment that I had wanted to propose and then park, and we weren't able to do it because it was in the middle of a clause. And right now we're in the middle of a clause. So I would prefer at least to deal with the current sub-amendment and amendment that we've been dealing with ad nauseum, vote on them. If the Conservatives are finished talking about them, we can just vote, and then we can move to our for greater certainty clause. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Housefather. Mr. Lawton, back to you.
So I appreciate that. I think first off, there are a couple of concerns. Number one, the Liberal government has been communicating to Canadians, to the media, to people who are concerned about some of these core religious freedom and freedom of expression issues, that they intend to address it through an amendment. The reason that we have been parked for so long on the current discussion, which is Mr. Brock's sub-amendment to my amendment, which attempted to provide some clarifying language in light of the BQ3, I believe, the amendment that was passed last year, removing the religious defense. The amendment that we are currently dealing with, or the sub-amendment, would be arguably unnecessary if we had a strong protection at another point in the criminal code and in Bill C-9. So I think if the Liberals are actually intending on dealing with these religious freedom concerns, the passage of their amendment would actually render much of what we're discussing here moot. So I'm trying to find ways that we can collaborate and break this logjam up. If the Liberals are willing to move this amendment now, as we've been told by the minister they are, it would actually make more sense to deal with it right now, to deal with out of order, because that will have a bearing on how other issues that arise in this bill are dealt with, in particular, the very sub-amendment that we're on right now. So if the Liberals aren't prepared to move this, I think that speaks volumes about how they're actually prioritizing addressing these concerns. But that would be what I'd say to Mr. Housefather's point, is that, there's arguably a line conflict between 11.1 and what we're discussing right now. And I want to make sure that we're dealing with the strongest possible protections here. And I don't want us to dispense with something now under the promise that we'll get to this later on, only to find out that it's not going to be allowed, it's going to be ruled out of scope, or there's going to be a line conflict found there. So I'd like to be re-added to the bottom of the speakers list, but that's my intervention right now, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Mr. Brock's next, but Mr. Housefather, did you put your hand back up, or is that still up from before? You did, okay. All right, so Mr. Brock, Mr. Babber, and then Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Mr. Housefather's comments. I deem it to be a little at odds with the spirit of the discussions I had, not only with the minister himself today, but also with the parliamentary secretary this past Friday. The only thing that I can conclude from that is they're just not serious in terms of dealing with this particular amendment and ending this logjam that we have at committee. I'm also mindful of the comments that I put on record before we finalized line by line, clause by clause on C-14. And I reminded this committee, as I reminded Canadians as a whole, that there was a very strong message from this Liberal government, particularly from Prime Minister Carney and House Leader Stephen McKinnon, that, in quoting Mr. McKinnon's words, put up or shut up in terms of passing immediately 14 and 16. Despite the ambiguous language by the Prime Minister last Thursday in Surrey to suggest that somehow C-14 is still being held up is completely untrue. It's in the Senate, has been in the Senate for some time now. But he does want to prioritize C-16. Stakeholders have asked parliamentarians to prioritize C-16. So that being said, I'm willing to move a motion at this point, Mr. Chair, that the committee immediately prioritize the consideration of Bill C-16, the Protecting Victims Act.
That's dilatory, right? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brock. It's a dilatory motion, so we'll vote on that. Mr. Clerk. Sorry, Mr. Fortin.
Pouvez-vous répéter?
Could you please repeat the text of the motion?
That the committee immediately prioritize the consideration of Bill C-16, the Protecting Victims Act.
You okay, Mr. Fortin? That's clear? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, merci. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We go to Madame Sudds.
No.
Mr. Housefather.
No.
Madame Dillon.
No.
Mr. Chang.
No.
Mr. Brock.
Yes.
Mr. Baber.
Yes.
Madame Borelli.
Yes.
Mr. Lawton.
Yes.
Mr. Fortin.
No.
Defeated.
Okay, motion defeated. Mr. Baber.
I'm a little perplexed by what's transpiring right now. Everyone agrees that there are concerns on the Conservative side with respect to the amendment adopted by this committee, removing the religious defense as a defense to an allegation, a good faith religious speech defense to an allegation of willful promotion of hatred. After some time, our Liberal colleagues understood that this is a material concern, perhaps not just by the Conservative Party of Canada, but by many other Canadians. And so we now understand that the Liberals are about to propose their own amendment seeking to fortify some of the protections that were available under Section 319 subsequent to the removal of the defense. That is what I believe Mr. Lawton's amendment also seeks to do. So I think everyone agrees, and everyone should agree, that everyone now agrees that we want to see if we can perhaps improve the language that will be agreeable by everyone. So I'm not exactly sure why my friend Mr. Housefather opposes our suggestion to prioritize the Liberal proposal, see if we can work it out, see if we can negotiate the language. I might even suggest that we might want to consider adjournment so we can look at the collective language being proposed and compare that language to Mr. Lawton's language, understand the position of our bloc committee member to see if we can negotiate the gridlock that we find ourselves in. So I know that Mr. Housefather is scheduled to speak after me, and I'm wondering in good faith why we can't prioritize the proposed, this Liberal, without breaching any privilege, but the intended Liberal amendment to try and bridge the gap between the Liberal Party and Mr. Lawton's sub-amendment that we're currently debating, since they intend to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Housefather.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Part of the issue is, unfortunately, with the train being canceled today at the last minute, I am not in the room, so I'm unable to have the conversations directly with my Conservative colleagues. But the proposal that we're putting forward is in a different clause. It's not a conflict of lines. But I understand the position of the Conservatives that have been filibustering on this issue for a while. In the event, Mr. Chair, that the Conservatives are prepared to stop filibustering and want to park this amendment where we are right now, move to, I am prepared to do that. Si le bloc est d'accord aussi, je suis prêt à le faire.
I'm ready to do that as well.
I hope then that will be treated with due consideration, and that then would then be an understanding that we would revert right back to clause 4 right afterwards. So, Mr. Chair, if I have unanimous consent of the committee to move to the Liberal amendment, which would be adding after line 12 on page 6, some language, I am happy to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Latanzio. Mr. Lawton is the next speaker on the list.
So just before I begin, are you confirming that the amendment is in scope and in order? Is that a firm ruling you're making?
Yes.
Okay. So I appreciate the recognition by my Liberal colleague that there is a problem with Bill C-9. And I appreciate that there has been some effort, even nominally, to engage with faith communities who have felt very targeted, very personally targeted by what's become of Bill C-9. And the problem, though, and we heard this in Ms. Latanzio's remarks there, is that this amendment does not actually seek to bolster any protections. It doesn't seek to, in her words, reintroduce any defense, any protection for religious freedom or public interest expression. It simply aims to say that none of this was at issue in the first place. So for people that were raising concerns that Bill C-9 was eroding long-standing protections in criminal law, the government's own admission right now about this amendment is that nothing is changing. They're trying to pacify concerns without actually strengthening these protections in law. And I'm very aware of the timing right now. We had a few days ago a ruling by the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal that invoked some of the very same ideas that are at issue in Bill C-9, which was how courts and administrative bodies deal with the question of hate, and how that definition, a definition which is changing and weakening under Bill C-9, is applied to people who are engaging in discussion that may be hurtful or offensive to people, and rightly so, but still deals with contentious social discussions where people have a range of political opinions, a range of religious perspectives and views. And this amendment is coming after what the Liberals claim is consultation with faith communities. Now, I engaged in a great deal of consultation with these people as well. I actually took a bit of time over our winter recess, and I traveled from British Columbia to Newfoundland, holding roundtables with faith leaders, meeting with groups ranging from Jewish groups to Christian groups to Muslim groups to Sikh and Hindu groups. And a few things emerged from those discussions. One of them is how little those groups felt they had been consulted on these questions, and how much they felt their initial concerns that religious freedom was being infringed or affected by Bill C-9, how little they felt the government was actually taking that seriously. So something changed around the time we were getting ready to come back, and we did hear, again, to the minister's credit, that he and his office had some conversations with some groups. And these groups said that this religious defense was important not just to pacify them, but because it actually spells out in law this idea, which the courts have long viewed as essential to even upholding the existence of hate speech laws, the existence of Section 319 of the Criminal Code. And the idea that was put forward there was that the religious defense is crucial, given that the Charter specifically enumerates religious freedom. And I note that when the proposed amendment from the Bloc Québécois, which the Liberals endorsed, to remove the religious defense was put forward, the argument wasn't that it was redundant. The argument was that we didn't want to protect religious speech. If the redundancy approach were really at issue here, then the amendment would have removed the public interest defense, it would have removed the truth defense, it would have removed the religious defense, it would have removed all defenses, because what the Liberals were saying is that these defenses don't really matter because the Charter has robust protections already. So already there was a doublespeak that we heard in terms of which group was being communicated which message. On one hand, stakeholders in Quebec notably were being told that, yes, we don't agree that religion should give you a pass on violent rhetoric. We heard the Adil Charkawi case come up, a case which has nothing to do with the religious defense because, A, prosecutors did not rely on it to not charge, and B, it does not apply to any of the offenses dealing with violence or threats to violence or even incitement. It only applies very narrowly to willful promotion of hate. And then on the other hand, we have faith groups and faith leaders being told by the government, absolutely, we're going to protect your religious freedom. Nothing will change from the status quo right now. So which is it? Is the removal of the defense redundant, or is the removal of the defense important? This is not a position that right now has been reconciled. And no community is being protected from hate if their sincerely held religious beliefs and scriptures are going to subject them to prosecution. And this is not a conspiracy theory that's emanating from some distorted interpretation in, that's drummed up on X. This is something that was inflamed by your predecessor, Mr. Chair, Mark Miller, who's now the minister responsible for Canadian identity and culture, that said there is such clear hatred in 3 books of the Bible and 2 books of the Torah that prosecutors should have the discretion to lay charges inherently because you could not cite those scriptures, which he disapproves of, in good faith. So this is why Canadians have been concerned. And I would note that Minister Miller's comments were actually saying that even with the religious defense, you should be criminally charged for quoting these verses, which he did not enumerate in the Torah and the Bible, because you could not be doing it in good faith. Now, in the amendment that was just moved by Ms. Latanzio, there is no delineation of good faith because there, in fact, is no protection. There's no protection given. We're just being told that, don't worry, we're not going to erode your religious freedoms. And the reasoning is very circular. We're talking about the criminal charge of willfully promoting hate. The bill says, or the amendment rather says, for greater certainty, nothing in subsection 319.2 or 2.2 of the Criminal Code shall be construed as prohibiting a person from communicating a statement on a matter of public interest, including an educational, religious, political, or scientific statement made in the course of a discussion, publication, or debate, if they do not willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group by communicating the statement. So this says, for greater certainty, you are not prohibited under willfully promoting hate by doing something unless you are willfully promoting hate.
Smash that like, gang. Like, we're going to get into the question period here in a moment, but smash that like.
That is not a clarifying statement. That is not providing any clarity or certainty. That is circular reasoning at best. The whole point of the religious defense is that it actually set out what can be conceived as hate. And the religious defense before, and also the public interest defense, the defense of truth, which I believe, and I would have to get clarity from our departmental officials and will in a moment, I believe those defenses are potentially threatened by the addition of this new clause, and I'd like some clarity on that. But before, it said that you could not be willfully promoting hate if you were expressing in good faith a religious sentiment or citing a religious text. This says you will not be engaged in the law views as willfully promoting hate if you're doing this unless you are willfully promoting hate. So it provides no definition, it provides no clarity, and it provides no limitation on how the term hate will be applied and interpreted, which is especially germane in the context of Bill C-9, given that as drafted now, C-9 provides a new definition of hate which has a lower threshold, which actually waters down the definition. And if you read the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal decision, which came about the other day, you actually see how the tribunal has had to walk through in its process. This line meets the threshold for hate and this line doesn't. This is hateful, this is discriminatory. And there's a lot in that decision that, again, I find very harmful to people's emotions and feelings. And I think there are things in there that I would never want to stand behind the substance of. But if you read the decision, it points to the problem of having to draw these lines. And this was, in the case of the tribunal, something where they could rely on Supreme Court jurisprudence, notably the Watcott decision, more recently the Ward decision, which actually try to deal with some of these balancing questions of whether a particular sentiment falls on one side of the hate boundary or the other. And in the case of human rights tribunals, they actually have a different definition they can lean on for things that fall under the threshold of hate, but still meet the threshold of what they view as discrimination. So it's very likely, because the criminal definition of hate is changing, that now some of these things that fell into a murkier territory in the BC Human Rights Tribunal decision would actually invite criminal charges. And we've now taken a bill that is, the Liberals claim, supposed to provide clarity and certainty, and have now injected more uncertainty, more ambiguity to it. When I talk to pastors and imams and rabbis and priests and leaders of Sikh Gurdwaras and Hindu temples about this. The one unanimous sense that everyone could agree with was that faith leaders who act in good faith in this country do not wish to spread hate. They do not want a license to hate because that is not what they know their faith to be. That is, they know their Bible, their Torah, their holy scriptures, their religious beliefs are not peddling hate. But they do not trust the government to draw that determination, especially in light of decisions we've seen made by human rights tribunals, and also in light of a lot of the discourse on social media right now, in light of Minister Miller's comments delineating scriptures as hateful. They do not trust the government or other bad actors in society who may wish to weaponize a complaints process to make those determinations. And all of them said, listen, our scriptures are about love. Our faith is about love. But we need the freedom to engage in this debate, the freedom to engage in this dialogue, and that is a freedom that they feel comforted by the existence of a specific religious defense on. And that's also how people will be able to root out the bad actors in society. You know, I pointed out in a number of these discussions, and it was unanimously understood, how there has been a lack of recognition by this particular government over the years on the tremendous benefits that faith communities provide to this country. Whether it's the church that runs the food bank to feed the homeless, whether it's the synagogue that runs the subsidized housing for seniors, whether it's the mosque that runs outreach programs for youth and children, all of these things. These are ministries, philanthropic initiatives that only exist because people of faith feel motivated to act out a message of love and faith and community that their religion tells them to do. And we don't get to benefit as a society from the good that faith communities do if we don't protect their actual right to spread their religious message and to share their religious teaching and to read their religious scripture without the fear that it will be weaponized against them. Legislating hate is legislating emotion. Calling verses of holy scriptures clearly hateful and inviting prosecutors to lay charges. Doing this can only erode religious freedoms. So for the government to say that there has been no effect of Bill C-9 on religious freedoms in the same breath as saying they are listening to concerns about religious freedom, and then provide an answer to that in the same breath as saying we'll address those concerns, saying that it won't actually change anything because you already have religious freedom, it's proving that the government is trying to check a box right now to solve a political problem instead of actually listening to these good faith concerns, which Ms. Latanzio, and I'm grateful she said, were sincerely expressed. And I'll even quote Mr. Housefather earlier. He said, we do have to deal with the concerns that have now been raised as a result, and this for greater certainty clause, I think, will help do that. We have an admission that there are legitimate concerns. Concerns that, by the way, have been raised by Liberal members of Parliament. And I'm grateful for the leadership of some particular members of the Liberal caucus who have had town halls in their ridings to deal with these concerns and bring them back to Ottawa. I know that, Chair, you are also the chair of the caucus. I hope that you've been having a spirited discussion about this internally, and I hope the Liberal members of Parliament will be able to vote freely on this bill to deal with some of these concerns that are affecting communities in very different ways. This is not just about one particular faith community. Religious freedom for one is religious freedom for all. And political speech is just as affected by this as religious speech is. And I'd like to turn to the officials on this. You've had the opportunity to listen to listen to the wording of the amendment. I don't know if you have a hard copy in front of you, but does this amendment fundamentally change anything about what speech will be classed as willfully promoting hatred, specifically in a religious context, but in general as well?
So thank you for the question. What this for greater certainty clause would do would be to confirm the scope of conduct expression that is caught by the offences. It would not change the application of scope of the offences.
So does it change scope compared to what the existing or the previous religious defenses do?
So based on the as drafted, it would not. It would confirm again, the for greater certainty clauses are used to clarify, explain an existing rule or provision, or to clarify its interpretation. And this one focuses on the mens rea, so the mental fault requirement. And so this clause would make clear what expression is not captured by the offense as it currently stands. And so that is any expression. Sorry, just let me pull it up. It would make clear that, yeah, a person, nothing prevents a person from expressing on matters of public interest, and it gives examples of that. Nothing would prevent that from happening if they are not willfully promoting hatred against an identifiable group. And so this is serving to clarify the existing offense. Does that answer their question?
But it doesn't clarify what is captured by willfully promoting hate, which the existing religious defense does. The existing religious defense basically says that, good faith religious expression, as one example, is not willfully promoting hate. Whereas this has very circular language that it says willfully promoting hate does not include these things unless they're willfully promoting hate. So it's basically reaching its own conclusion by using the same language.
So the defense serves to clarify the scope of the offense. So to the extent that good faith expression is incongruent, the court has said, in the sense there's a redundancy with the offense, this clause would serve to confirm that indeed good faith expression, as was contemplated in the defense, that is not caught by the willful, it would not meet the standard, the high threshold of willfully promoting hatred against an identifiable group.
So if the last line of 11.11 and 11.12 were removed, so anything after publication or debate, which is basically what I would view as the circular line, if they do not willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group by communicating the statement, would removing that line strengthen the protection in your view?
Again, the purpose of a for greater certainty clause is not to add something new, it is to clarify an existing rule. So by removing that, I think the essence of the clarification, which is on the mens rea, would be removed from the clause.
All right, gang, we're going to cross over to the live show of Question Period, like they are on the House of Commons floor now. So we're going to jump into that. We mean to. Let's go.
It's the third time I've risen in this chamber to speak about housing.
Sorry.
And I have to,
Like,
what I have to
share,
say,
subscribe.
I cannot believe how much hot air this Liberal government goes up in this place. It's almost enough to launch the Remax hot air balloon. Yet, availability and affordability of housing goes down across this country. The talking points are endless. The press conferences are polished. The announcements are flashy movie sets that are quickly deconstructed after their announcements. But back home in Newfoundland and Labrador, the tents are real. The wait lists are real. And homelessness is real. Hundreds of men, women, and even children are experiencing homelessness in my province. Hundreds of youth are on the waiting list for emergency shelters, and the emergency shelters are full. And that's not just a statistic. That's failure. And that failure belongs to this government, because after 8 years, after billions announced, after strategy upon strategy, housing is less affordable, less attainable, and less available than when they took office. In my province, young families are not asking for luxury condos. They're asking for a modest starter home, a place to raise their kids, a place to build a life. Instead, they are competing against inflation, bureaucracy, gatekeeping, and federal policies that drive up the cost of living and cost of building at every single stage. The Liberals say they are investing. But if you invest billions into homelessness rises, that is not investment. That is incompetence. What I have learned in my last 9 months here in Ottawa is that the Liberals love picking winners and losers. Their favorite movie must be Pinocchio, because all they want to do is to pull the strings in almost every aspect of Canadians' daily life. In my riding, we have business owners applying for federal funding to build low-income housing. That may sound great, but it creates so much bureaucracy, red tape, and inequality. Let me give you an example, Mr. Speaker. Two businessmen in neighboring communities both apply for funding, say 10 units, nearly $50,000 a unit. Talk about an awesome gift from the feds. I'm starting to think they like the color red because it reminds them that they can put on their coat and pretend to be Santa Claus. But here's the problem. One of those businessmen didn't get funding. Now, all 10 of those units are going to a neighboring community, leaving none for that businessman and his community. But why? Why didn't each applicant get 5 units each? The transparency of these application processes are so low. Perhaps the only way to be accepted is to be a Liberal insider or a Liberal donor. Us Conservatives, time after time, have fought for transparency and fairness. One of the biggest being the Accountability Act of 2006. We fight for policies and platforms that incentivize everybody equally. Instead of picking winners and losers and only choosing a select few to get incentives, we want to work with provinces to reduce the GST on all new homes under 1.3 million. Policies that benefit all Canadians. No applications, no selection process, no favoritism. In Canada, we have lots of land, we have high unemployment, and a huge demand for housing. And when you ask home builders what the problem is, they always say there's too much red tape and too much bureaucracy. Developers spend years and thousands of dollars trying to acquire land and the permits and the developmental fees and approvals, oftentimes having to deal with 3 levels of government. Once again, they want government and bureaucracies to simply get out of the way. But this Liberal government wants to do the opposite. Every solution that this Liberal government proposes adds to the problem by creating more and more bureaucracy. Justin Trudeau's government implemented the National Housing Strategy, and it didn't work. Home prices continue to soar at rates much higher than our neighboring economies, such as the United States. The Liberals came back to this House after the election while claiming and campaigning with different yes, okay, thank you. While claiming that they were a completely different government, they decided they want to continue to do the same. And that created the Private Members Bill C-227, which creates more red tape. And that wasn't enough. So now we're here today discussing Bill C-20 that once again just builds more bureaucracy. If these Liberals are going to come into this House, put off their smoke and mirrors, and repackage the same bills over and over, I have no choice but to give you the same speech, but just in a different font. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to split my time today, and I'd also like to continue to give my speech, but I'd like to split my time with another member afterwards. But these Liberals, they want to introduce this new bill so they can be directly involved in giving the illusion that they're trying to put out the fire that they started. In 2017, they launched the National Housing Strategy, administered by the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation. If they already have the solution, why do they need to repackage the same old plan? They spent $150 billion to build only 170,000 homes. Do you want to know what that works out to be, Mr. Speaker? $676,000 per home. The money was wasted on bureaucracy. Now they want to create a new Crown Corporation to physically build the homes, create even more involvement and more strings for them to pull. Here's the kicker. They already have a Crown Corporation that does this. All this bill does is merge the failed National Housing Strategy and the failed Canadian Lands Company into one corporation. That's Liberal math for you. Take 2 failing things, put them together, and pretend it works. But in reality, it's like they're trying to build a motorcycle with 2 flat tires. Can you imagine how many homes could have been built if these Liberals have worked with Conservatives to remove the GST on new home builds?
I dislike interrupting the honourable member. He shall have about 3 minutes and 25 seconds to end his speech, to continue and end his speech after question period. We will now go to statements by members. Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Cape Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the hero I want to recognize today would look to most as an ordinary person with success in his professional life. He was instrumental in bringing the Real Estate Association and the Multiple Listing Service to St. John's. He served as president of the board and their longest-serving member, 56 years. He also served as a director for the Canadian Real Estate Association, a city councillor in St. John's, and he was sworn in and served as a Canadian citizenship judge. He was the recipient of an organ donation, survived cancer, although that is back. But these things are not what makes him a hero. He was the soulmate to his wife of 64 years, a loving father and grandfather. His cape has been wrapped around his family. He is our hero. My dad's journey with his family is meaningful, and even though he has health challenges, he has the strength and smile of a hero.
The honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Today, words travel farther and faster than ever, allowing those words to outlive the moment. What comes out of a person's mouth has immediate impact, and those words are not harmless. But we all have said something we regret. Our words create momentum for good or destruction. We think strength is proven by being blunt, direct, or unfiltered. Proverbs 18 tells us that the tongue has the power of life and death, to build up or tear down. Angry words are sharp. Prideful words are dismissive, and fearful words are defensive. But wisdom produces measured, purposeful, helpful words, and understands that restraint or silence is not weakness. Deliberate words carry authority because they are chosen, not impulsive. Leadership isn't volume, it's direction. A wise person uses their tongue to bring clarity, courage, correction, and hope. They understand that speaking truth requires both conviction and care. In this place and always, may our words express life. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kanata.
Mr. Speaker, I recently had the opportunity to attend Quantum Days, where researchers, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders from across Canada came together to showcase the very best of Canadian innovation. Canada is a global leader in quantum research, and that leadership matters. Quantum technologies will shape the future of secure communications, advanced computing, sensing, and materials. They are critical to our economic growth, our defense industrial strategy, and the protection of our national security. By investing in Canadian talent, supporting homegrown companies, and strengthening partnerships between academia, industry, and government, we are ensuring that Canada develops and retains the capabilities needed to protect our data, secure our infrastructure, and remain competitive. Canada's quantum future is bright, and we will continue working to ensure that it is built here at home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Flamborough, Glanbrook, Brant North.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor for me to salute Peter Turkstra, a leader, a builder, and community philanthropist. Last week, I attended the industry luncheon of the West End Home Builders in Hamilton, where Peter Turkstra was inducted into their Hall of Fame for his decades of leadership and service. Turkstra Lumber is an institution in the construction industry. This honor was very well deserved. However, Peter's acceptance speech raised loud and clear alarm bells of an industry in crisis. He called out the excessive taxes and bureaucracy from these federal Liberals, as well as the provinces and municipalities that are decimating home building in Canada. It hurts Peter's soul to lay off experienced and loyal tradespeople because of this crisis. At a time when young people have given up on the dream of home ownership in record numbers, how sad. This is not a demand problem, this is an overtaxation problem. Right. Let's heed Peter's call, cut the HST on all new homes, reduce development charges, cut the red tape.
That's right.
Congratulations, thank you, Peter.
The honourable member for Tayayakan, Parkdale, High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to honour a few of the Black and African Canadian cultural trailblazers of Tayayakan, Parkdale, High Park. Dr. Rita Cox served as the head of the Parkdale branch of the Toronto Public Library for decades and created the Black and Caribbean Heritage Collection there with more than 16,000 items. She continues to connect us to literature and learning, including as the namesake for a school on Jameson Avenue. Black visual art will soon be on display at the new home of the Band Gallery on Brock Avenue in Parkdale, Canada's only Black-run, Black-focused art gallery. I toured it last week, which, with funding from this government's Cultural Spaces Fund, will become a community-focused, fully accessible, museum-grade space. The project is the brainchild of a powerful group of women, including Karen Carter, Claudia Pensabauen, and Josephine Denis. During renovations, you can check out a new kind of order curated by Josephine Denis at Toronto's Union Station, which includes work by Timothy Yannick Hunter, a member of our riding's community. On this 30th Black History Month in Canada, it's Black storytelling that brings back culture to life.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, this Saturday is the annual Coldest Night of the Year fundraising walk. In communities across Canada, participants will be walking in the cold and the snow to support those experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness. This year, I look forward to walking in St. Mary's in support of the St. Mary's Nourish Market and community outreach worker. In Stratford, funds will be raised to support ShelterLink Youth Services and the Stratford Connection Centre. In North Perth, they are supporting North Perth Housing and Homelessness Action through the United Way. And finally, in Minto Mapleton, they'll be supporting the work of the Community Resource Centre of North Wellington and Centre Wellington. Across these 4 events, over 850 participants have already raised over $250,000. With the national housing crisis preventing so many Canadians from finding a safe, affordable place to live, the need is greater than ever. Thank you to all who have signed up and donated. I look forward to seeing everyone this Saturday wearing their warm toques. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Vimy.
Mr. Speaker, Michael Kieran was a man of faith and a man of science, brilliant and yet humble. Educated in nuclear physics, he devoted his professional life to dealing in the complexities of large transportation systems, first as a partner in KPMG, then for many years at Canadian Pacific Railways, and later as a consultant on special transportation projects. A man for others, Michael was a stalwart of Montreal's English-speaking Catholic community, serving on the board of directors of the Pillars Trust for 19 years, including 9 years as its president. Michael's community engagement also extended to politics. He was active in party politics and twice served in the crucial role of official agent for the member for Lac Saint-Louis. Michael's kind manner and life and business experience drew others to him in search of wise counsel. To his wife Shirley, daughter Melissa, and son Philip, and to the grandchildren of whom he was so very proud, we offer our deepest condolences.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Every winter, tens of thousands of Canadians travel to Mexico to escape from the cold and make lifelong memories with their loved ones. Yesterday, in Jalisco State, including in and around Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta, the normal beach-filled activities of Canadians traveling in Mexico turned to fear and anxiety as violence erupted throughout the region. To all Canadians in Mexico, this House is holding you in our thoughts and prayers, and we will all work for your safe return home. As a former diplomat, I know the hard work our local consular officers are doing right now, and I ask the government to continue to provide the necessary resources and assistance required on the ground. If you are Canadian in Mexico, please register with the Registration of Canadians Abroad and follow the advice of local authorities. I pray for peace, stability, and safety for all in Mexico. Rezo por la paz, la estabilidad y la seguridad de todos en México.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we are all concerned about the attacks by a drug cartel in Puerto Vallarta and Jalisco. Our hearts go out to the Mexican people who are once again caught in the crossfire. But we are obviously concerned for the thousands of Quebecers and Canadians who are now confined to their homes and hotels to escape the violence. With roads blocked, airspace closed, the Bloc Québécois also urges tourists and citizens to exercise extreme caution and follow the instructions of local authorities. But that's not enough for these people and their families. They want to know when they will be able to return home and what their government is doing to ensure that happens. It's not enough to hope that the situation will calm down in the coming days. We have no control over that. We need a plan of action in collaboration with Mexico to bring our citizens back home as soon as possible. To that end, the Minister can count on our entire cooperation. Thank you.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, students in Mississauga, Erin Mills are clear. Doug Ford's decision to slash OSAP grants and increase student loans is devastating. This change will affect hundreds of thousands of students who rely on OSAP for post-secondary education and equality of opportunity. Yesterday, a health sciences student from my Mississauga Erin Mills Youth Council, not a so-called basket weaver, shared how she now expects over $10,000 in additional debt, forcing her to delay her graduate studies and rethink her path. These policies push students deeper into debt and make it harder to build the skills that our economy needs. Our federal government puts in 60% for OSAP loans, and that part is not impacted. But the Ontario government needs to understand that supporting youth means supporting our economy. Students deserve opportunity, not obstacles. Today, I call on Doug Ford to do the right thing and reverse the proposed measures so our youth can have that equality of opportunity.
The honourable member from Kitchener South Hespeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 21 years ago, residents of Kitchener, Ontario, were shocked to hear of a mass murder in our community. Self-described Satanist Michael Sirois rang the doorbell of 87-year-old Verna, who he once knew from church. He stabbed her and 47-year-old Randy 27 times, including through both eyes. Danny Penner is the brother of Randy. He shared with me the incredible trauma these murders continue to cause in his family to this day. Out of respect for his brother's memory, he has resolved time and again to speak at Michael Sirois' parole hearings. Last week, Danny had flights booked to attend the scheduled hearing, only to have it canceled at last minute out of respect for the psychotic mass murderer's mental health. Our justice system is not delivering justice. Parole should not even be a question for this crime. Why won't the Liberals reform the parole system to respect the bereaved family's trauma rather than the so-called mental health of a psychotic killer?
Absolutely.
The honourable member for Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to highlight Scout Week 2026, celebrated throughout the country from February 16th to the 22nd. The scouting movement now for generations has helped to develop committed, responsible, and caring young people through outdoor activities, volunteer work, and community projects. It develops leadership, resilience, and teamwork, qualities that are essential for building the Canada we want. The end of this week coincides with Founders Day in tribute to Robert Baden-Powell and Octave Baden-Powell, who played a key role in the development of the Girl Guides actions within Scouts Canada's movement. I'd like to thank the thousands of volunteers and leaders who dedicate themselves to supporting our young people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under this Prime Minister, food prices have skyrocketed by 7.3%. Canada now is the food inflation capital of the G7. This is a made-in-Canada problem. 70% of all food is produced domestically. We produce 80% of our processed foods. Conservatives have a food affordability plan to remove hidden liberal taxes on food, such as the industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processors. Let's get rid of the fuel standard tax on farmers, truckers, and those who bring our food. Let's dump the food packaging tax that costs Canadians $1.3 billion annually. Our plan reduces affecting the prices of food. It restores nutritious, affordable meals for Canadians. Will the Prime Minister work with us to achieve this goal? Canadians want to know. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cape Breton, Canso and Tignish.
Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, a community gathered to pay tribute to the life and legacy of Arnold Syliboy, who passed away a year ago. Arnold enjoyed bringing people together.
This is my guy. This is Jamie Baptiste, Hami Baptiste. He came to my house. I had to tell him he was nice, but that's inappropriate
for
clothing.
Good cause and good times. He competed with determination in any sport or contest, and at the same time had the ability to bring joy and laughter to every situation. Arnold was a caring leader, natural athlete, and a committed volunteer who will be fondly remembered for his great empathy and ability to listen to others. And this naturally made him a great at his work as a youth worker, a social worker, a barber, and a staff member for this MP. A more loyal wingman in life you will not find. His loved ones held a bowling tournament in his honor to raise money for his community and a local high school scholarship to honor his legacy. Mr. Speaker, there are no words for goodbye in the Mi'kmaq language, only we'll see you then. So with that, Nimultis Nanapnidap, Agizalolek.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, rejected asylum claimants should not be receiving better health care than Canadians who have paid into a system their entire lives. It makes common sense. At a time when 6 million Canadians cannot afford a family doctor and are waiting for care, it's unacceptable that bogus asylum seekers are receiving better health care than Canadians.
That's right.
When over 13,000 residents in Niagara Falls are forced to use a food bank, and when our homeless shelter, the Coronation Centre, is bursting at the seams, why is this government providing better health care services to non-Canadians than to citizens who are desperately in need? Conservatives discovered this health care mess, and we proposed solutions, including removing federal benefits from ineligible claimants, except for emergency health care. Conservatives will make sure there are enough jobs, houses, and health care for Canadians before bringing in new immigrants, and we will restore compassion and fairness to Canada's broken and abused asylum system.
The honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor and recognize an extraordinary act of courage and compassion by a private citizen in the face of grave danger on Highway 401 near Trenton in my riding of the Bay of Quinte. A gentleman I welcomed here in Ottawa today, Isaac. During a recent snowstorm, a multi-vehicle crash on one of Canada's busiest highways, this individual did not hesitate to put others before himself. Amidst whiteout conditions, he stopped his own car and raced vehicle to vehicle, checking on motorists, urging them to remain safe and calm. Witnesses say he returned repeatedly into harm's way to carry out trapped and injured passengers, including pulling a woman from a burning vehicle and helping another man to safety. Acts that emergency officials say undoubtedly saved lives on that day. Isaac himself has humbly downplayed his actions, saying he does not consider himself a hero, Mr. Speaker, but a hero he is indeed. I invite all members to join me in thanking Isaac for his courage and his bravery on that day.
Oral questions, questions.
Let's go.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
All right.
The Liberals have enabled hundreds of thousands of bogus refugee claims. Liberals' failures on immigration like this one means billions of tax dollars have been spent on hotels and social welfare for false refugee claimants, all while Canadians struggle to access health care and while legitimate refugees languish. This has to stop. Will the Liberals support our constructive motion to restore fairness and prioritize Canadians who pay for the healthcare system over fake refugees?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the member to this important discussion. We have already introduced and made changes to the interim federal health program that will considerably reduce the costs. We are also making significant changes and have introduced C-12, which will curb the misuse of asylum. We will control costs, and we will truly protect those that are vulnerable in line with our international and humanitarian obligations.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Well, the Liberals haven't been able to get hundreds of millions of dollars worth of pandemic scam fraud returned to them, so I highly doubt they'll be able to get fake refugees on deportation orders to pay back their health care. Mr. Speaker, this is something that needs to end. I will ask the minister again. This is a common sense motion. Literally everybody agrees with it. Will the minister support our constructive motion to ensure that Canadians who pay for our health system are given better access than fake refugees?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to keep our program sustainable, we have and are making measured changes to the health coverage. We've already introduced copay to the system. We are already curbing the misuse. We've introduced a lot of integrity measures. We have C12 that is currently in front of us, and thank you for the Conservatives for supporting that. That will reduce also misuse of the system. We also have international and obligations that Canada will continue to honor, particularly for those that are in need, and most of them are children.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer revealed the interim federal health program will cost taxpayers over $1.5 billion a year. The Liberals expanded this program to provide a deluxe health benefits like physiotherapy and home care to bogus asylum claimants whose phony claims have been rejected. Canadians are not entitled to them, but rejected asylum claimants are. Why are the Liberals giving bogus asylum seekers better health care than Canadians who fund the system?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate that question. To speak to the PBA report, those are projections in that report. They do not take into account the changes that are coming in Bill C-12. Neither do they take into account the interim health measures that we've introduced, including copay and other provisions. So I look forward to that.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals defend deluxe health benefits for bogus asylum claimants, millions of Canadians are waiting in line for care. There are Canadians in this country who can't get health care they need because the wait list is too long. Ahead of them on that wait list are people who filed fake refugee claims and were rejected by the government's own refugee board. Will the minister explain to Canadians why bogus asylum seekers are ahead of them in line?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to point to that member who I respect quite a bit. Last session, we were on the same committee. In 2014, it was this Conservative government that the Supreme Court ruled that they made that their changes were unconstitutional, and they took away health care coverage for the most vulnerable, including children. This is not something we will do on this side of the House. Again, we are curbing misuse. We've introduced changes by introducing copay. Asylum claims are down by a third under this government.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, our once exemplary immigration system is now in a shambles. We have discovered at the Committee of Health that health providers are causing taxpayers to pay up to 5-time provincial levels for illegal asylum seekers. And meanwhile, 6 million Canadians do not have a family doctor. That's an insult for those who have been paying taxes all their lives. Will the government support us in reestablishing fairness in health for Canadians first? The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. On this side of the House, we are working very hard to ensure that our asylum system is strong. We have reduced asylum claims by a third. We also introduced C-12, and I'd like to thank our colleagues who have assisted us.
Smash that like, gang. Smash it. Just smash it.
In passing that legislation. Thus, asylum claims, as I said, have gone down by a third. And we are strengthening our programs. We are continuing to carry out our work on this topic. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report is very clear. The sharp increase in costs from the interim federal health program proves that the system is broken. We need to get rid of federal benefits for non-eligible asylum seekers, except in case of emergency, and we need to ensure that Canada has the housing and healthcare capacity before welcoming new arrivals. Will the government finally guarantee that non-residents will receive health care that is superior to the health care received by our own citizens? The Honourable Minister, the numbers my colleague quoted are merely projections. They are not real numbers. And given the changes that have been made to the program, those numbers are no longer accurate. We have made significant improvements to the asylum system, including in Bill C-12. The work is going well. We are reducing costs, and we are protecting vulnerable individuals. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Curem fiasco is costing a lot of money. We were wondering where Quebecers' money was going. The cost of this software went from $1.75 to $6.6 billion, which is almost $5 billion more. And all that money seems to be going into the pockets of private business. Well, actually, $3.4 billion, more than half, has been sent to the private sector. And we don't even know what that money is being used for, because the government is refusing to unveil its contracts to media or to MPs. When will there be a public and independent inquiry? The Honourable Secretary of State, Seniors.
They don't know what the money is being used for, but they were on the committees that approved the spending. They know that this money has been used to complete the transformation of a 60-year-old system. If we had let that system stand, people would not be getting their benefits. Mr. Speaker, this program is not costed in a cost overrun situation, as they would assert. This has cost just over $1.4 billion, and the OAS conversion is now complete. The amounts that they're talking about is a theoretical approval for a possible system transformation. This OAS system is now complete, people are being transitioned, and there's no cost overruns.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Well, apparently the cost overruns are so unimportant that the government says that they're common practice. Well, that's exactly the problem. That's what happened with ArriveCAN. And with Phoenix, it is common practice. And in 2023, the Auditor General stated that there were risks. It warned the government. It said there were risks to taking shortcuts, like what happened with Phoenix, but clearly no one listened, because now, once again, there's a $5 billion cost overrun. And this software is causing problems for 85,000 retirees. When will there be an arm's length inquiry? The Honourable Minister. With a project of this scale, the money is dispersed in sections. There was a disbursement of $1.7 billion for the first phase of the project. And did not include the full benefits in certain cases, so there will be gains in reliability and effectiveness for seniors in future. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, 85,000 retirees are experiencing problems with their OAS because of this software, which has now hit $5 billion in cost overruns. And yet those responsible for this problem are giving themselves bonuses. In 2024-25, higher-ups at Employment and Social Development received bonuses worth more than $15 million. At a time when retirees are suffering and when taxpayers are paying for this, how can it be that those responsible for this are being paid for their so-called good work? The Honourable Secretary of State, Seniors.
Speaker, my friends across the aisle know there are no cost overruns. This was a planned, phased project, and just over $1.4 billion has been spent, and the OAS project is completed. If there are individuals who are having problems with getting payments on time, we invite them to contact us, and we would like them to do so. Those numbers will go down as Canadians transition to an online system, and we would really like them to transition to the online system, and this will speed things up, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, 6 million Canadians don't have access to a family doctor, and it takes 30 weeks for the average Canadian to see a specialist. But the Liberals use a Canadian taxpayer dollars to fund a Cadillac healthcare system for asylum claimants, including free access to glasses and contact lenses, physiotherapy, nursing homes, and hearing aids. These are free benefits that regular citizens don't get, and this doesn't come cheap. It costs nearly $1 billion this year. Will the Liberals support our motion and ensure that asylum claimants don't get better health care than regular Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the first thing I would say is they call them bogus asylum claimants. There are actually a great number, in fact, millions of legitimate asylum claimants all over the world. Our country has distinguished itself over its history as being a welcoming place for legitimate asylum claimants. We will always be a welcoming place. And when people arrive here from war-torn areas or children are in need of health services, every single Canadian I know, Mr. Speaker, would insist that we provide those health services to that person. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And enough of
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, it doesn't change the fact that they have created a two-tier healthcare system that disadvantages ordinary Canadians. The Liberals continue to betray Canadians, putting bogus asylum claimants first by giving them access to healthcare benefits that regular citizens don't get. And we just learned that the government automatically gives residency to refugees from North Korea, Afghanistan, and Yemen without even talking to them. Instead of an in-person interview, these Liberals are blindly granting residency, all while giving generous healthcare benefits. So I ask again, will the Liberals support our motion and ensure that asylum claimants don't get better health care than regular Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to our humanitarian obligations, in many cases treaty obligations, as Mr. Harper found out when the Supreme Court ordered him to restore health benefits to asylum claimants for their well-being. Mr. Speaker, in our case, we have managed this number of asylum claimants down. We have passed a law in this House to move that number down. We have passed, or are about to pass, a law to take benefits down for this category of person. We will continue to manage this carefully, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Thousands of people in BC can't see a family doctor, yet the Liberals now provide deluxe health care benefits to rejected asylum claimants at taxpayers' expense. The PBO has shown that the interim federal health program has skyrocketed in costs to almost $1 billion. Will the Liberals support our motion and ensure that rejected asylum claimants do not get better health care than Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, asylum seekers who come to this country are the legitimate ones, those who are found to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain ambient noise in question period, which is totally acceptable in the atmosphere of debate. But when it gets a little past a certain threshold, I have to ask the respondent to start again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And look, I want to assure all Canadians that asylum seekers who come to this country are judged for their legitimacy. If they are found to be legitimate refugees and asylum seekers, like all compassionate countries, like all signatories to international agreements, they are permitted to stay. Those who are not found to have respected those criteria are asked to leave. This government has made very, very tough measures in this Bill C-12, currently before the Senate, to make sure that we can continue to get that number down.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
What the member did not mention is that Liberals at the Health Committee are currently filibustering any attempt to even study this program. That doesn't sound like they're trying to fix anything. They want a cover-up. Conservatives are clear on the solution. No more physio or vision care for rejected asylum claimants. Yep. Will the Liberals support our motion and ensure that rejected asylum claimants do not get superior health care benefits to Canadians?
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Mr. Speaker, it's really unfortunate that we have this kind of conversation where we are talking of the health of Canadians and asylum seekers. The reality is those people are in the country and we have agreement. And And our system, the health system is a compassionate system. So what we are saying is those people, they need to have access to health. And we are working closely with provinces and territories also to get more access to Canadian people. Thank you.
The honourable member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer reports the interim federal health program will cost nearly $1.5 billion a year to cover health care for fraudulent asylum claimants. This program gives anyone claiming asylum better health care than Canadians who pay for it, even if these claims are denied. As wait times grow and health care access shrinks for citizens, the Liberals prioritize a growing list of bogus refugees over Canadians. Will the government support our Conservative motion to stop criminal claimants from receiving superior health benefits at Canadian taxpayers' expense?
Well said. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I would put more credence in my honourable colleague's argument if he or his party actually had a record of defending better health care for Canadians. Think about the record that they have demonstrated over the time I've been a member of Parliament. They have opposed the largest transfer to provincial health care systems. Wow. They have opposed dental coverage for Canadians. They have opposed birth care and other essential medicines that Canadians need. This isn't about the quality of health care that Canadians need. The only solution that they're putting forward is to deny the children of refugees dental care. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, this is disgusting, un-Canadian, and beneath this House.
The honourable member for Niagara South.
Mr. Speaker, too many people in Niagara cannot find a family doctor. Right now, taxpayers are being charged up to 5 times the provincial rates to provide health care to rejected asylum claimants. Families have waited long enough, and our failed asylum system is making them wait even longer. Conservatives have proposed common-sense solutions to address this horrible situation. It's time for the government to remove benefits to bogus claimants. Will the government support our motion and ensure that non-citizens and non-permanent residents do not get superior health care to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, you know what happened? Mr. Speaker, do you know what happens as failed asylum seekers? They're removed, Mr. Speaker. Last year, we removed over 22,000 individuals who are inadmissible, Mr. Speaker. We as a government are ensuring 32,000 missing.
The honourable member for.
It's okay.
But listen, I need to hear the questions and answers so I can tell if any rules are being broken. So, the honourable Minister of Public Safety from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, you know what happens to failed asylum seekers, Mr. Speaker? They're removed. Last year, we removed over 22,000 inadmissible individuals from Canada. This year, through the Strengthening Canada's Immigration System Act, C-12, which is now going through the Senate, Mr. Speaker, we will be removing more individuals and more will be ineligible to seek asylum. We are hiring 1,000 new CBSA officers, the first cohort of which are graduating this Friday, Mr. Speaker. We are strengthening our border and ensuring that those who are inadmissible do not remain in here, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, that minister knows very well he has lost 32,000 people who have been ordered deported. As a physician, as the son of a refugee to Canada, this issue is very close to my heart. I wish we were speaking about healthcare today, but instead we must speak about healthcare fraud. We are talking about people who claim refugee status only after they are investigated or arrested for crimes like terrorism or extortion. We need to talk about such people because they are receiving better health benefits than ordinary tax-paying Canadians. When seniors in Kitchener can't find family doctors and can't afford their medicines, how on earth does the Liberal government...
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think that member
member was around when the opposition party voted time and again against the investments that provinces and territories have been asking us to make in strengthening our universal health care system. Mr. Speaker, that's how we build a health care system that everybody is proud of, something that we built on the foundations of our forefathers and mothers in this place, where we can ensure that people can access quality, affordable health care across this country, Mr. Speaker, not by tearing down different groups of people.
The honourable member for Gaspésie, les Îles de la Madeleine, liste des Gauches. Mr. Speaker, the federal government lost control during the Roxham Road crisis, and it was even worse than we thought. The C.D. Howe Institute has revealed that when Ottawa was overwhelmed by asylum claims, it reduced its monitoring. Between 2019 and 23, 25,000 people were accepted as refugees without being interviewed. So that's 25,000 refugees who were accepted, many in Quebec, without even having their statements checked. And this morning at committee, we learned that that's still what's being done. When will the government take action on this? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The safety of Canadians and Quebecers is our priority. Officers carefully examine every asylum claim before it's submitted. To the Refugee Board, and non-eligible claims are not sent along. We have already reduced asylum claims by 1/3, and we will continue to take action. The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, les Îles de la Madeleine, liste gauche. Mr. Speaker, when the federal government found itself overwhelmed by asylum claims at Roxham Road, its solution was to allow refugees in blindly in order to speed things up. Ottawa drew up a list of countries from which asylum claimants were automatically accepted without being asked any questions. For example, Russia, Afghanistan, Iran, and other countries. So the result was that right in the middle of the Roxham Road crisis, the acceptance rate went from 65 to 80%. Why did the government tolerate this? Why did it let us accept refugees without ever having met with them?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Merci pour la question, Mr. Speaker. Let me be very clear. Canada has one of the most robust immigration refugee protection system in the world. The Immigration Refugee Board is the gold standard by which adjudication are made towards refugee protection. As a country that is a signatory to the Refugee Convention of 1951, it's important that we have full faith in our system, Mr. Speaker. The IRB does adjudicate and ensures that those who are inadmissible, those who are ineligible to seek asylum, do not go forward, and those who are deemed to be clear refugees do get asylum, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
The Liberals are shutting down agricultural research, and now their red tape is literally choking the life out of agri-food businesses. A survey said 90% of agri-food business owners believe that Liberal policies are putting the future of Canadian agriculture at risk. Red tape and regulations have already increased Canadian food inflation to 7.3%, by far more than double the rate in the United States. Experts are clear. Red tape, inflationary spending, the industrial carbon tax are increasing the cost of food production. How expensive do groceries have to get before the Liberals stop strangling Canadian farmers?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the government of Canada, we're going to continue to invest in our farmers and ranchers right across this country. We'll continue to make sure that they lead the world in science, what we talked about, Mr. Speaker. But I also want to come back, Mr. Speaker, to the industrial carbon tax. We know it's ineligible in the cost of food, Mr. Speaker, in this country. But one thing I want to say to everyone, Mr. Speaker, is it's not the farmers that are making the money. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
He's right. It's not farmers who are making the money. This is why 90% of agri-food business owners say Liberal policy is restricting their ability to be productive and grow.
Exactly.
70% of Canadian farmers are telling their kids not to take over the family farm. This is devastating for the future of Canadian food production and food security. It is making Canada less productive, less competitive, and less food secure.
Yep.
Canadians are already paying amongst the highest grocery prices in the G7. Why is this Liberal government so determined to drown farmers in red tape and taxes and make food unaffordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
As I travel around the world, our farmers are the envy of the world and what they do, Mr. Speaker, here at home. They're some of the best farmers in the world, and we'll continue to ensure that they continue that, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, blaming farmers for the cost of food is not the appropriate level of issue. We're talking about many different types of issues that diffuse some of the costs around groceries and items, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to support them as best we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Middlesex London.
Mr. Speaker, I keep hearing from farmers and producers that Liberal red tape and taxes is choking the life out of them and is threatening our food sovereignty. Nearly 90% of food businesses believe that the future of Canadian agriculture is at risk. Liberal red tape means punishing regulations and industrial carbon and fuel taxes that are driving up the cost of production across the entire food supply chain. So how high will grocery prices have to skyrocket before the Liberals stop strangling Canadian farmers with taxes and red tape?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, while the Conservatives refuse to acknowledge the success of Canadian agriculture and the work of farmers, the facts speak for themselves. Our agri-food exports reached over $100 billion, Mr. Speaker. The sector supports over 2.3 million Canadians, or 1 in 9 jobs, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue standing with our farmers as they export to countries around the world. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Middlesex London.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is it's been 10 years of bad Liberal policies and hidden taxes that have driven Canadian food inflation to 7.3%, the highest in the G7, far more than double the rate in the U.S. This is a Liberal-led, made-in-Canada problem that is driving up food prices and driving Canadian producers right out of business. With 70% of all food produced domestically, including 80% of our processed foods, when will the Liberals actually take this seriously and start cutting taxes and red tape for our farmers?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaking of farmers, we are listening to our farmers. In fact, in our last trip to China, we got them access to over $7 billion of agriculture access in canola, in seafood, in beef. That means good jobs for farmers in the canola sector, over 200,000 jobs, in the beef sector, over 250,000 jobs, in our seafood sector, 35,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker. This is what we're doing. We're standing with our farmers and opening new markets around the world.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
In December, the Stony Creek Food Bank saw a record 1,694 total visits, the largest since 2022. Also in December, the Fair Share Food Bank in Oakville saw the largest number of people they've ever served, over 913 families. Canadians rely on food banks because food prices have skyrocketed by 7.3%. How many Canadians need to visit a food bank before these Liberals stop strangling Canadian food production with red tape and punishing taxes?
The Honourable Minister for Jobs and Families.
Speaker, every step of the way as this government works to support families in need, these Conservatives vote against them. They obstruct our budget bill in this House, Mr. Speaker. Money that Canadian families are needing for all kinds of things, including the jobs that many of our union workers are relying on. You know what helps with food insecurity, Mr. Speaker? Good paying jobs. But newsflash, these Conservatives vote against every measure that actually creates good paying jobs. So whether it's helping hungry people or helping hardworking Canadians, they're opposed. What's it going to take?
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Canadians elected a new government with a mandate to build Canada strong. This means investing in our workers, industries and supply chains by unlocking new opportunities and investing in our sovereignty. This also means investing in the brave men and women who are members of our Canadian Armed Forces. Can the Minister of National Defence provide an update on what we're doing to build Canada's defence industry while supporting our Canadian Armed Forces?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, last week we launched Canada's first ever Defence Industrial Strategy. It's a plan that provides a signal to industry, to allies, to partners, to the Canadian Armed Forces and to Canadians alike that we are moving forward quickly and we're moving forward with purpose. We are building, we are partnering, and we're buying Canadian. We're strengthening our relationship with our partners, we're transforming procurement, we're investing for results. That's what our new strategy is all about.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues should check out the Liberal Party's election campaign platform at page 63. I quote, "The federal government has spent too much." When the Liberals came to power, the debt was $700 billion. It has grown to $1.4 trillion in just 10 years. In their election campaign platform, they also talk about efficiency and results. Well, now we have this QRAM computer system that has gone from $1.6 billion to $6.6 billion. 85,000 seniors are waiting for their money. Is this what the Liberals call efficiency? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I know it's Monday and the colleague wanted to hear some good news, so I have some good news for him, Mr. Speaker. Canada has the second fastest growth of all G7 countries, Mr. Speaker. That's the Liberal plan. That's the Prime Minister's plan, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is to grow the Canadian economy. He should not speak against our economy. He should be proud. We are building jobs. We're building cars. We're building planes. We have critical minerals. We have energy. We are the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all other G7 countries. Mr. Speaker, we are here to build and grow. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, that's the respect that this minister has for seniors. I am talking about 85,000 seniors who are not receiving their pension payments. I bring that up, and he talks about Canada's economic development. There's no respect for our seniors. These seniors built the country. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we transitioned from a very old system from the 70s and we modernized it. There was no cost overrun. What there was a modernization of our IT systems. Now, there were a few cases, and I'm waiting for the member across the way to inform me of any cases he may be aware of. He should inform us, and we will solve any cases that need to be fixed. But generally, we have good news for Canada. A reminder to all, I know that we all get excited sometimes, but we shouldn't smack our desks too loudly because that can harm interpreters. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Échemins, Lévis. After the Phoenix fiasco, now we have QRAM, ruining seniors' lives. It was initially expected to cost $1.75 billion. Now the bill has skyrocketed to $6.6 billion. That's 4 times the initial price, Mr. Speaker. While the Liberals are wasting taxpayers' money, seniors are waiting 9 months for their pension payments. My questions are very simple. First question, why do Liberal programs always run massively over budget? Second question, why do seniors have to suffer the consequences of federal Liberal incompetence with yet another failed software program? The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors. We did this under budget. Over 7 million seniors are now receiving their benefits through a modernized system. QRAM, the total cost, the $6.6 billion, is for 4 different projects. $6.6 billion was the approved initial amount for the total duration of the project. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Échemins, Lévis. Same old government, same old Liberal habits. Mr. Speaker, as usual, consulting firms are lining their pockets. Since the Liberals came to power, they have spent no less than $26 billion on external contracts. History is repeating itself with QRAM, a project with an astronomical cost of $6.6 billion, of which about half will go directly to external firms. Meanwhile, 85,000 seniors are suffering. They're dealing with payment delays or repeated administrative errors. Why should seniors pay the price for this Liberal incompetence, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, over 7 million Canadians are benefiting from OAS and are receiving their pensions through this new system. with no issues. Now, of course, there have been a few issues here and there in the transition from a very outdated system to a very modern system. Of course, there are a couple of little issues. We are addressing them, and if there are any issues, people can contact Service Canada. They can even contact their Member of Parliament, and we will help them. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, $5 billion. It's atrocious. $5 billion is how much the QRM cost overrun will cost taxpayers. The Liberals think that's totally normal and acceptable. Worse still, we're unable to obtain information about the private external consultants to whom most of that sum is being paid. This has become the norm over the past 10 years. The norm is no transparency. This is a federal version of Quebec's SACLIC, but 5 times more expensive. Why should seniors and taxpayers pay the price for this disastrous decision-making? The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
The opposition is saying, in fact, the initial program authority of $1.7 billion was intended to be used to kickstart the first phase. In fact, the program is under budget. And great news, Mr. Speaker, 7 million Canadians have transitioned to this new system. The system was 60 years old. Can you imagine that, Mr. Speaker? Paper applications being filed, lots of mistakes. And, Mr. Speaker, this is going to make life easier for all seniors going forward. If the member opposite has some urgent case that they know of, please send them our way. We're able to process those in 24 hours. Yep.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Yet another scandal, Mr. Speaker. After the Phoenix scandal, Liberal incompetence has reached new heights, the highest heights in the QRM file. The QRM software is a federal version of Quebec's SACLIC. The bill for this IT project will come to $6.6 billion, and more than half of that amount will go to consultants who get away with delays, failures, and cost overruns without any consequences. Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are struggling, public money is being thrown out the window. Why are cost overruns part of Liberal DNA? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the question was a bit funny or entertaining, but this question has been asked many times and answered many times. The answer is there was no cost overrun. Over 7 million Canadians are benefiting from the new software, and it's a success, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katascomique, Témiscouata. Well, we thought we had seen it all with Phoenix and ArriveCAN, but now QRM has surpassed even Quebec's infamous SACLIC. The Liberals told us that they would manage taxpayers' money responsibly. What do we get instead? $6.6 billion wasted, and seniors still waiting for their pension payments. And the worst part, more than half that money is going straight into the pockets of consultants. How can the Liberals justify this mess? Why are the Liberals making seniors suffer the consequences of failed federal software? The Honourable Government House Leader. This question has been asked many times and answered many times. Now I'll say it's been asked many, many times. Mr. Speaker, they're shouting about nothing. Of course, it's complicated to transition federal software, but this is a success story. We had an outdated system, and we transitioned to an ultra-modern system. Now benefits are being paid out to over 7 million Canadians, and Mr. Speaker, we should celebrate that.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government was forewarned in 2023 that their new system, intended to enhance OAS and GIS payments, was already going over budget. This project has ballooned to $6.6 billion. Wow. The taxpayer is now responsible for the failure of a system that was supposed to guarantee better access for our seniors. At a time when seniors are struggling to make ends meet, how does this government justify billions of wasteful spending on a broken system?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, I'm really happy to answer this question and remind the member opposite that years ago, the Auditor General warned Harper's Conservatives that the old benefits payment system was outdated and at risk. That means that under those Conservatives, people would not get their money at all. What did the Conservatives do, Mr. Speaker? Nothing. That's just their way. Get out of the way and do nothing. We have invested to ensure that it serves seniors for years to come. Mr. Speaker, if a problem arises, we will fix it.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, another excuse from the Liberal government. Seniors are already struggling with the cost of living, and delayed payments are causing seniors to fall behind on rent, skip groceries, and worry about how they will pay for their medication. This is unacceptable that this project went from $1.7 billion to $6.6 billion. Who's accountable for this massive cost overrun? Who will be fired? And when will this government take responsibility for another overpriced failed system?
Honourable Minister for Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, if you consider transitioning 7 million Canadians to a system without a hitch, that's actually not my definition of failure. You know what is, Mr. Speaker? Not investing in the modernization of systems when they had a chance, and voting against, Mr. Speaker, bringing all our systems up to date. Not only are we modernizing OAS, but we're modernizing EI and CPP for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians ought to have systems that they can use digitally. That's what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. We're making sure that Canadians have state-of-the-art benefit payments.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Les Pays d'en Haut. Mr. Speaker, the world is changing. The global order is disrupted, and rapid technological advances are changing the way Canada must respond to threats. Canada's new government is responding by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. Mr. Speaker, we are already seeing results. Applications to join the Canadian Armed Forces have increased by nearly 13%, and Canada is on track to meet its target of 2%. Can the Minister of Canada, United States Trade explain to the House how the first-ever defence industrial strategy will strengthen our security and stimulate economic growth across the country? The Minister of Canada, U.S. Trade. Mr. Speaker, Canada's new government is focusing on what we can control, building here at home and working with allies and buying what we need. The new defence industrial strategy represents a $500 billion investment in Canadian industry, security, and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, this is as much an employment strategy as it is a defence strategy. 125,000 new positions will be created, strengthen supply chains, and this is how we are standing up for Canada.
Skyrocketed 7.3%, rising more than twice as fast as other goods. This is not an imported problem. 70% of the food Canadians consume is produced domestically, including 80% of processed foods. Yet nearly 90% of agribusinesses now say the future of Canadian ag is at risk. So why are food prices rising? Punishing regulations, inflationary spending, and Liberal taxes continue to force Canadians to pay more at the store. How expensive does food have to get before the Liberals stop strangling farmers and get serious about bringing back affordable food?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
We're getting very serious. It's called ensuring food security for Canadians. I'm happy to share that with the member. He may want to explain that to his constituent. The great thing, Mr. Speaker, with the Canada Groceries and Essential Benefit, we're helping Canadians, 12 million Canadians. But in addition, and I'm sure he's going to call his constituent, we're putting $500 million to help to have a more resilient supply chain, Mr. Speaker. We need to grow more food in Canada. We need to have a better supply chain. We need to focus on food security. That's exactly what we're doing, and I hope that the Conservative will vote in favor of the bill, Mr. Speaker, because this is helping farmers.
The honourable member for Flamborough, Glanbrook, Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, under this Prime Minister, food prices have jumped 7.3% and are rising twice as fast as other goods, making Canada the food inflation capital of the G7. This is a made-in-Canada problem. 70% of our food production is right here at home. Yet nearly 90% of agribusinesses say Liberal red tape is putting them at risk. Punishing regulations and the industrial carbon tax are driving up costs. Just how much higher must grocery bills climb before the Liberals stop strangling Canadian food production with red tape and punishing taxes.
And the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is a bit rich to listen to the Conservatives talk about Canadian farmers and agri-food businesses when they had their chance in April 2025 and they had absolutely nothing in their platform for Canadian farmers or agri-food businesses. Mr. Speaker, we know the price of food is a major issue in this country. That's why we've introduced the Groceries and Essentials rebate. 12.6 million Canadians will benefit, up to $1,900 a year. But we're also introducing the National Food Security Strategy, Mr. Speaker. This is an opportunity to look at the systemic aspects of food, what we can do to help support farmers.
This is an example of a mentally ill person who can't handle the sound of love. Let's try it this way.
Accompanying him. No one will notice.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country.